Factoring trinomials. So our first problem is x squared plus 5x plus 6. So the first thing we want to do is set up our brackets. We see that we have that x squared up there, so we know that we're going to need x times x. Everything's positive, so we know it's going to be a plus sign on both sides. Now we need, let's look at our last number here, the 6. We need two numbers that multiply to 6 but add up to 5. So 6 times 1, that would add up to 7. 2 times 3, that would multiply to 6 and add to 5. So the 6 over here, we need our two numbers to multiply to it. And then the 5 over here, they need to add to that number. So x plus 2, x plus 3, and you're done. Got 5 more problems. All right, so our next problem is x squared plus 7x plus 10. Again, I'm going to set up my brackets, and I see that I have that x squared up there. So I know I'm going to have x times x, and again everything's positive, so I'm going to have plus signs. Now I need two numbers that multiply to 10 and add up to 7. 2 times 5 is 10, and 2 plus 5 is 7. So x plus 2 and x plus 5. Our next problem is x squared plus x plus 12. Just like the last two problems, I'm going to set up my brackets. I know I have x times x. Oh, and this is actually going to be a minus 12. So I know that I have my x times x to make x squared here. Now I need two numbers that multiply to negative 12. But they have to add up to 1 because there's a 1 in front of this x here. So negative, we could say, what about negative 6 and 2? Well, that doesn't work. What about negative 3 and 4? So negative 3 times 4 is negative 12, and negative 3 plus 4 would give us our 1. So we just plug in our negative 3 and our positive 4. All right, well, 3 more problems. These next ones have one extra step, but you'll find they're very similar to our last problems. Oh, maybe we have 4 more. Or 5 more. All right, 2x squared plus 10x plus 12. All right, set up our brackets. Well, actually, what we need to do, okay, so let's just look at this one. We need two numbers that multiply to 12 but add up to 10x. And that's not possible. So what we need to do is think of something that all of these have in common that we can pull out. And we have this 2 in front of the x squared, and I can pull a 2 out of every other number. So this will become 2 times x squared plus 5x plus 6. So both of these equations are equivalent. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my 2 down here, because that's going to have to stay. And then I have that x squared plus 5x plus 6. I'm going to do what I did in all the previous problems. I'm going to set up my brackets. Now, I know that I have x times x. And everything's positive, so these will be plus signs. Now, what two numbers multiply to 6 and add up to 2? And this is just like one of our previous problems besides this 2 out here. And it's 3 and 2. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 plus 2 is 5. And you're done. All right. 3x squared plus 21x plus 30. All right. Again, like the last problem, there's no two numbers that are going to multiply to 30 and add to 21. So we need to find something in common. And 3 can come out of all of these numbers. So we're going to pull out the 3, and we'll be left with x squared plus 7x plus 10. Now I'm going to drop the 3, and I have this x squared plus 7x plus 10. So I'm going to make my brackets. I know to get x squared, I'm going to need x times x again. And everything's positive, so these will be plus signs. Now, two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to 7. This is the same as one of the previous problems. And that was 2 and 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 plus 5 would give us our 7x. Alrighty. All right, 10x squared plus 10x minus 120. 10x squared plus 10x minus 120. All right, so like the previous two problems, there's no two numbers that are going to multiply to negative 120 and add up to 10. So what we're going to do is, well, we see that we have this 10 in front of the x squared, and we can actually we could pull 2 out of these. We don't want to do that. We want to pull out as much as we can. We could pull 5 out, and then we can pull 10 out. So we're going to pull 10 out. So it'll be 10 times x squared plus x minus 12. And now the 10 is going to drop down here. We set up our brackets. We know that we need that x squared in the front, so it's going to be x times x. Now, this is the same as the previous problem, this part of the equation. What two numbers multiply to negative 12 and add up to 1? And we found that that was positive 4 and negative 3. 4 minus 3 would give us our 1 here. 4 times negative 3 would give us our negative 12 here. All right, a couple more challenging ones now. And they're not really more challenging. That just requires just a little bit. You just have to see it, really. All right, so x to the third minus 8x squared plus 15x. All right, so what I want to do here is look for a common factor. And the most common factor is all of these numbers have an x. So I'm going to pull out an x. And we're going to have x times x squared minus 8x plus 15. Now I'm going to drop down my x like I did in those previous problems. This time it just happens to be a variable. And I'm going to set up my brackets. All right, so I need two numbers that multiply to 15 and add up to negative 8. So I know that both my numbers are going to be negative because they need to, well, maybe not necessarily. But what you end up finding is that it's negative 5 and negative 3. And negative 5 and negative 3, they will multiply to a positive 15 and they will add up to a negative 8. So we have our x in the front here to make our x squared, and then minus 5 for a negative 5 and minus 3 for a negative 3. All right, one more problem. We have x to the fourth minus 9x to the third minus 10x. All right, let's look for a common factor. Oh, this is 10x squared at the end there. And our most common factor is an x squared. So I'm going to pull out x squared. And it's going to be x squared times x squared to give us that x to the 4 up there, minus 9x minus 10. Now I drop the x squared, and I set up my brackets. Now I need my x's in the front here to get us back our x squared. And then I need two numbers that multiply to negative 10 but add up to negative 9. And that will be a minus 10 and a plus 1. Because negative 10 times 1 will give us our minus 10 here. And negative 10 plus 1 will give us our minus 9. All right, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. It helps out a lot. And thank you.